Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
Happy birthday. Welcome to 95 years of gardening memories, celebrating us with a birthday luncheon and a petite flower show. Now for our presenter for today, our guest speaker, Mrs. Peggy Martin. She's going to share her story and her journey surrounding the Katrina Rose, a story of resilience and rebuilding after Hurricane Katrina. It's a real parallel to Terrebonne Parish and our recovery from Hurricane Ida. So I present Mrs. Peggy Martin.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, to be invited to speak to your group. I truly believe in all the garden clubs. I've belonged to many over the years, and it's just dear to my heart, keeping all of these gardens alive and the work that you do and what you accomplish. I just love it. Gardening's been a big part of my life. I was very early exposed to roses. I'd say 4 or 5 years old. My grandmother had gorgeous roses, but I know that's where my love of gardening came from. I started gardening in 1974 when my husband and I finished our first home in a little town called Phoenix in Plaquemines Parish. But in 1974, when we finished our home, which we built in Phoenix, I started gardening. And I knew that I wanted to do it organically, so I have continued with that all these years. And I just loved plants. Started with camellias and azaleas, and then daylilies, and just every type of garden plant you can think of. I love all plants. I love color too, though. So I amassed a huge garden. And in 1989, I got a cutting of a rose that was a rambler, and it came from a garden in the Garden District. And I planted that in 1989, And that thing grew. We had a big shed for tractors and farming equipment because we were on 12 acres. And it was a tin shed, 4 bay openings. So I said, I want to hide that because everything else is so pretty with the garden and all. And so I planted it on the side of that. By the time Katrina came, that rose was 40 feet across that shed and 30 feet back and hanging, cascading over the front, which was just gorgeous. And I have had experts come from all over, and some of them from foreign countries. They'd come to speak or attend some big function in the United States, and they would come through and come visit our New Orleans Oak Garden Rose Society and speak. So I've had them from India, from Australia, from France, Italy, all these people coming in, and I would bribe them to go down to my house. And none of them ever knew what it was. They had never seen it before. He never saw it before. And believe you me, he's been around all the South collecting roses. And he had never seen it before. So Dr. Welch says, you got to give me cuttings for this because I love it. You know, we got to see what it is. So Katrina comes, and at that time I had 450 antique roses alone in that garden. And everything was destroyed in Katrina. All those plants, everything, my home, my mother and father's home. Most of you might know the story. I lost my mother and father too. They both drowned. They did not evacuate. They were both 82. They were ill. They did not want to evacuate, and married 63 years. And it was tragic. We lost everything we owned, my husband and I, except for my car, a suitcase of clothes, favorite pillows, and a safe with important papers. It was like Hiroshima. Black sticks, gray ash, just muck and swamp and marsh grass. And right after Katrina, we had like a 3-week period of severe drought and heat, and it burned it all up like gray ash. It was a terrible period, I can tell you. I was like a zombie. I was in shock for months, and my husband took care of me like a baby. Too much shock at one time, you can't function. And to lose my parents like that, it just is devastating. Dr. Wells found out through friends that lived in Point-a-la-Hache. He heard them speaking. They had 2 tables of these people from Point-a-la-Hache. He heard them speaking about my family, losing my family and all of that, destruction. And he got up and he walked over there and he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I overheard your conversation, but please tell me. I'm trying frantically to get in touch with Peggy and I can't." And they told him everything that happened. So finally, I got in touch with him through my son's email. A few weeks later, he calls me back. He said, "Peggy, do I have the permission to call the rose Peggy Martin? We're going to sell the Peggy Martin rose and collect $1 per rose for this restoration fund." It sold thousands. So when the first time I went back, after they cleared the highway, we're walking there past Mom and Dad's house, and I look up at that shed, and I see these big, dark green, forest green canes all over the top of that shed. And I go over there, and I take the cane in my hand, and I see new growth coming on. And it just stuck with me. I said, I can't believe why this lived. And in my heart, I know why. Mom and Dad knew I was going to be devastated. And they asked God, maybe, but I don't know. God gave me that. God gave me that.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.